long before the public had any idea that something unusual was happening behind the walls of the royal residence. An atmosphere of uncertainty had already settled over the family. Quiet hallways, carefully managed schedules, and unexpected changes to official appearances gradually created questions that no one outside the palace could answer. While rumors slowly spread, those closest to the young prince were focused on something far more important than public attention. Every day became a careful balance between protecting a child from unnecessary pressure and trying to preserve a sense of normal family life. Advisors discussed different ways to respond to growing speculation, preparing formal statements filled with cautious language and polished phrases. Yet none of those carefully written drafts seemed capable of expressing the emotions that the family was experiencing in private. As the silence continued, one member of the family began to believe that honesty, compassion, and humanity could carry more strength than official wording ever could. That realization quietly set the stage for a decision that would eventually change everything. One peaceful evening, after reviewing several professionally prepared drafts, Princess Catherine quietly placed them aside and chose a different path. Instead of relying on formal expressions, she picked up a blank sheet of paper and began writing from the heart. Every sentence reflected the emotional journey the family had been living through, replacing carefully controlled language with sincere thoughts shaped by love and concern. Her intention was not to reveal every private detail, but to make sure that kindness and understanding would guide whatever message eventually reached the public. She believed that behind every royal title was still a family facing the same fears and uncertainties experienced by countless parents around the world. While the palace focused on protecting tradition, Catherine's thoughts remained fixed on protecting the emotional well-being of her children, especially the youngest member of the family, whose long absence had become impossible for people to ignore. The story had actually begun weeks earlier when what first appeared to be an ordinary childhood illness failed to disappear. Although the initial symptoms seemed manageable, recovery came far more slowly than anyone expected. The energetic child, who usually filled every room with laughter, gradually became quieter and noticeably weaker. Family meals changed as his appetite faded, and even simple daily activities required more effort than before. Concern naturally increased with each passing day, leading medical specialists to quietly monitor his condition while the family tried to avoid unnecessary public attention. Behind closed doors, hope remained strong, yet so did the uncertainty. Everyone wished for a quick return to normal life, but deep inside they understood that patience, care, and emotional strength would now become just as important as any medical treatment. This difficult period marked the beginning of a journey that would test every member of the family in ways they had never imagined. The situation became far more serious when the family realized that the recovery was taking much longer than anyone had expected. What had first seemed like a temporary setback slowly developed into weeks of uncertainty, leaving everyone inside the household deeply concerned. To protect the young prince from unnecessary attention, experienced medical professionals visited the residence privately, carrying out regular examinations while every effort was made to keep the family's daily routine as normal as possible. Outside the palace, official schedules quietly changed, and planned appearances were adjusted without detailed explanations. These changes naturally attracted public curiosity, but inside the family home the only priority was helping the young boy regain his strength. Every day was approached with cautious optimism, as his parents hoped that the next morning would bring encouraging signs of improvement. A particularly emotional moment arrived during a private practice event inside Windsor Castle. The gathering had been arranged as a calm environment where the young prince could slowly rebuild his confidence before returning to public life. Everything appeared peaceful until he suddenly stopped walking and quietly admitted that he was struggling to continue. The unexpected moment immediately filled the room with concern, prompting the adults nearby to react without hesitation. Princess Catherine remained beside her son, offering reassurance while medical staff quickly assessed the situation. Prince William calmly asked everyone else to leave the area so that the young prince could receive complete attention without distraction. Meanwhile, Prince George and Princess Charlotte were gently guided away to another part of the building to spare them from witnessing a situation that might leave lasting emotional memories. Although the moment was eventually brought under control, it reminded both parents that their son's recovery required far more time and patience than they had originally believed. After that difficult day, Prince William became even more determined to keep his son's health completely private. He believed that protecting the young prince from constant public discussion was the best way to support his recovery, even if it meant canceling important appearances and disappointing those waiting to see the family together. Palace advisors, however, worried that continued silence would encourage even greater speculation across newspapers, television, and social media. They recommended releasing a carefully prepared statement to answer growing questions before rumors spread further. William understood their concerns but remained convinced that no headline or public expectation was more important than his child's well-being. For him, the greatest responsibility was not preserving public image, but giving his son the peaceful environment he needed to recover with confidence. While this decision came from love, the extended silence gradually began affecting the emotional atmosphere inside the family home in ways no one had anticipated. As the weeks passed, the emotional impact of the family's silence became increasingly noticeable. Prince George tried his best to appear calm and mature, believing that staying strong would help his parents during such a difficult period. Even though he rarely expressed his own worries, he quietly observed every change around him and sensed that something far more serious was happening than anyone was willing to admit. One evening, unable to hide his concern any longer, he approached Prince William and asked whether it was possible for someone to be seriously unwell while the outside world knew nothing about it. The simple question carried far more emotion than its words suggested, reminding his father that the family's decision to remain silent was also affecting the children who were trying to understand the situation. At the same time, Princess Charlotte found her own gentle way of supporting her younger brother by leaving cheerful drawings, handwritten notes, and small surprises near his room, hoping that even the smallest gesture might brighten his day and remind him that he was never facing the journey alone. Despite the love surrounding him, the young prince gradually became aware that something felt different. Conversations often stopped when he entered a room, public appearances were no longer discussed in front of him, and everyone seemed unusually careful about the words they chose. Being too young to fully understand the reasons behind these changes, he slowly began forming his own heartbreaking conclusion. He wondered if people were keeping him away because they were embarrassed by his condition or believed he was no longer strong enough to be seen. Those quiet thoughts remained hidden until one emotional conversation with his mother, during which he shared his fears openly for the first time. Hearing those innocent concerns deeply affected Princess Catherine, who realized that the silence intended to protect her son was unintentionally making him feel isolated. At that moment, she became convinced that emotional reassurance was just as important as physical recovery and that the family needed a different way to communicate with the world. Late one evening, after the children had gone to sleep, Prince William and Princess Catherine sat together to discuss what should happen next. Before them lay two very different approaches. One was a carefully prepared official statement filled with formal language, while the other was a handwritten message expressing genuine gratitude, hope, and honesty. William remained concerned that revealing too much could invite endless public attention and unnecessary speculation, while Catherine believed that a sincere message would help replace uncertainty with understanding. After a long and emotional discussion, they slowly reached a shared decision. Rather than exposing every private detail, they would speak with compassion, acknowledge the family's difficult journey, and thank everyone who had supported them along the way. Their goal was not to satisfy curiosity, but to remind people that behind every royal responsibility stood parents doing everything possible to help their child recover with confidence, dignity, and hope. The family's decision was eventually shared with King Charles, who carefully reviewed the heartfelt message in private. After reading every line, he understood that the words were not written to attract attention, but to protect a young child's feelings. Rather than focusing only on royal tradition, he believed the family's emotional well-being deserved equal importance. Before anything was made public, Princess Catherine read the message to Prince Louis himself.